Welcome to lecture number 18. In this lecture, we will be more focused towards product costing. Costing is very important phenomena because it decides the success of a product. When a customer goes to a market and buys a product, apart from its performance, he also keeps cost as one of the major objectives to be met. So, in this lecture we will focus little bit on introduction, followed by it will be cost and price structure, then information need sources, then estimating direct and indirect costing, design and manufacturing costing, and ways to model manufacturing cost. The ratio of perceived quality to its cost is called the value of the product. Thus, the goal of design activities are to create a product that satisfies customers' requirement and to maximize product. So, any company which comes into market, so they always try to maximize their product, the profit. So, when they try to maximize their profit, they also must keep in their mind that customer requirement is all met. See, there are 2-3 ways of strategy forming. One strategy is you sell very small number of products or products and make your profit. The other way around is sell more number of products, have a smaller margin in each product, but sell more in numbers, you still make your total gain whatever it is. The third one is you try to, which is not ethical, you try to cheat a customer and all you have to do is cheat him only once, but you cheat more number of customers and the product dies off after one sale. That is the third strategy. Some companies do follow, but that is not an advisable strategy. We will always look for the first and the second. Sell lesser number, have very high quality, make profit. Sell more in number, have very small profit, but since you have sold more in number, you also still make the same profit. Within this, you have to make a strategy and then start doing it. But whatever you do, the company wants to make a profit, but the profit cannot be sacrificing customers' requirement. The difference between the price at which the product is sold and the cost of providing the product to the customer is called as the profit. So, the difference between the price at which the product is sold and the cost of providing the product to the customer is called as profit. A profit is required for business enterprise to remain viable. See, nobody will make a product, no company will make a product wherein which that product is not making profit just for sustaining. If somebody makes a loss in the initial few days of the product establishing, that is okay, they have a business strategy. But this cannot be done for a long time, or I will put it in this way, no product is sold for zero profit. As cost is the most accessible and universally understood measure of the resource consumption, so cost is very, very important. Many a times we talk about performance, we talk about quality. So, but this performance and quality are indirect measure. Quality, you always say, if the quality is met, the customer is satisfied or customer is happy. So, what is his happiness? I cannot quantify. If the performance is very good, what is the performance? How can I evaluate the performance? It can be in terms of energy reduction, or it can be in terms of cost. But a measure which is directly accessible by everybody and accepting by everybody is costing. So, costing can be readily used as an important metric on which to base the engineering design's decision. So, this point says very clearly that costing is very, very important. The difference between the price at which the product is sold and the cost of providing the product to the customer is called as profit. Engineering economics and cost analysis. Engineering economics is the application of accumulated knowledge in engineering and economics. It is used to identify alternative use of resources and to select the best course of action from an economic point of view. For example, a chair can be made out of steel, a chair can be made out of wood, a chair can be made out of plastic. So, what we look forward is how do you decide wood, plastic or steel. So, this choice is made on top of engineering, wherein which economics is also kept a major point. The cost analysis is necessary for determining the manufacturing and life cycle cost of the specific product. Cost estimation and thereby profitability, cost estimation is different, profitability is different. Cost estimation and thereby profitability is necessary for determining the economical advantage of the business, which determines the ability of a company to be competitive. If a company is competitive in the market, it has to have regularly assessing the product performance and the cost, then decide what is to be done. Cost and price structure. Direct labor cost plus material cost is equal to prime cost by operational cost. Direct labor cost is cost of the actual labor used to produce the product. So, since the labor cost is going very high, today there is lot of demand for automation. So, people look for automation and robotics as a big field wherein which they try to replace the human labor. The direct material cost comprises the cost of raw material or semi-finished material that can be directly attributed to the product. Factory overhead plus prime cost is equal to cost of the goods manufactured divided by manufacturing cost. There is something called as overhead cost. So, overhead cost is indirect material cost, factory supplies, lubricants, indirect labor cost, cost of a supervisor, inspection, salary of a factory clerk, and fixed and miscellaneous costs such as rent, insurance, tax, depreciation, maintenance, repair, utilities and small tools. All these things fall under overhead cost. When you go to a shop, a canteen, or when you go to a hotel, the bill which is getting generated, wherein which you use a paper, which is nothing but a overhead cost. You cannot live without a paper. Today the scenario has come to such a good extent that what they do is even the bills what you eat are getting transferred through mobile phones. So, like what you have in Ola and Uber, the same way as soon as you finish your dinner, the bill comes on to your cell phone and then you go to the counter, pay that money, or you can pay it through Paytm directly. So, that is what is the new advancement. So, there the paper what we used is a overhead. So, the direct labor cost plus material cost is equal to prime cost divided by operational cost. What is direct labor cost we have seen? Factory overheads, we have seen all the factory overheads here. The information needs and sources. The accurate estimation of a cost requires reliable information. So, you can't do a lot of approximation. For example, when I start talking about pharmaceutical industry, per tablet they talk about a profit of 2 paisa, 3 paisa. So, that is the profit margin they talk about. Here they have to boil and nail down to the last decimal point or take it to the last level and do all the cost estimation very precise. Okay. The flow of information should be uninterrupted, timely and consistent throughout and simple. See, today we talk about digitization in a big way. So, the digitization is trying to reduce the time, and it is also talking about using a data source which is consistent. Okay. So, the flow of information should be uninterrupted, timely, consistent, thorough and simple. Usually 3 kinds of information are important. One is historical, measured and policy. Historical is what is the sale last year and what is the measures we have taken this year, and policies are what are the government policies which is given for this discount and other things. The information from internal report historical and typically included in accounting information. Measured information generally is in dollars or time dimensions such as material quantities calculated from the drawing. Okay. So, that is measured information. Policy information is a fixed in nature and includes information such as union management, wage settlement, social security tax, liability insurance, etc., etc. For example, the wage, every year there is a government policy, they revise the minimum wage for daily wage workers, and this they have in India there are two systems followed. One is central government wage minimum wages and state government minimum wages. So, there are two things, an industry or an organization can decide which one do they follow and which one they have to, and when they follow one they have to comply to the complete things. So, these are all policy decisions, and every year or once in 5 years there is a revision in the salary. So, this once the salary increases, it has to be increased for all levels of skills in the factory. So, that is a policy information. The sources of information, there is, as I said, internal as well as external is there. Internal information is accounting department, personnel department, operating department, purchase department, sales and marketing. Accounting department is, they talk about what is the cost. Today I invest a capital into this product to be bought. So, when will I get back my capital, and when I put this capital in it, every day it also has interest. So, when will I get back the interest? Certain interest, certain capital money can be borrowed, certain you have your own money, so you try to reinvest. So, those informations are called as accounting informations where a department gives. Then personal information, how many people involved in that. Operating department try to say whether we can subcontract this or whether we can try to produce everything inside. So, that is what is the operating department says, how many staffs required, whether we should run in 3 shifts or not, when is the material to be procured, should we buy it in multiples of hundreds or should we buy it, what is the batch size, all those things are done. Purchase department decides whether it is to be done inland or it has to be imported. Inland is within the country's production itself, can I get it same, or can I get it from abroad for the cost whatever I can afford. Earlier it was talked about when we try to buy it inline, the cost is going to be economical. Today the cost has become the technology has so much developed and the costing has come down drastically. Today we try to compete with international market. The international market products are comparable with that of inland. So, those things, and sales and marketing, all those things talk about the internal information which is to be added to the product costing. When we talk about external, it is government agencies, international agencies, business firms, trade association and publications. They all are the external source of information which are to be added to, which are to be taken up when we decide the costing. When we talk about international agencies, see, take a simple example of petrol or diesel today. So, the diesel price is now become dynamic and it depends upon the international market. So, there is a rise or a decrease depending upon the international agency, not on the government policies for one particular product as petrol. Government agencies, they try to decide and give the depreciation and the interest waiver, all those things. Estimating direct and indirect cost. So, direct cost and indirect cost. Direct cost are those costs where the material cost and the person who is involved in developing, they directly touch the product. They are called the costing which is involved is called as direct cost. Indirect cost are something like a supervisor, computer purchased, all those things are called indirect costs. The structuring cost information is, it is a process of grouping like facts about a common reference on the basis of similarities, attributes and relationship. So, basis of similarities between the products, attributes, so very fine color, texture, all these things are attributes and their relationship. Once the cost information is classified, it is summarized. Cost information is classified based upon whatever we have seen in the earlier slides. Sometimes a master list of cost codes are used. For example, if you know that a screw M10 screw costs rupees 10. So, then a screw M6 might cost something like 6 rupees. So, suppose if I do not have the costing, or suppose if I decide to do if I wanted to produce between M6 and M7 some screw, or M6 and M8 I want to produce M7. So, what it does is, in a master file I can see M6, I can see M6, M10, and then I can try to take a price in between these two and then start putting it as a cost. So, a master list of cost codes are available, and apart from that, what happens is, when you try to see, you always see a price listing given for several products in a manual or in websites. So, these things are nothing but master list of cost codings which are used. Materials, supplies, equipment cost, and the likely are assigned costs from the original documents, and giving the appropriate code numbers are there. For example, when you go to buy a pizza in a shop, so each pizza has a code number. So, what they do is they just punch the code number, and then you see the rest of the cost coming up. And then when it is done, you can see, apart from the costing, you have that all the tax costing, and then they put GST, whatever it is, and then finally they say this is a total XXX amount. And if you see, the denominator is a very difficult number to give a change. So, then also it approximates and it says XXX and then stops these 2 digits. Okay. So, all these things are structures of in costing. So, direct labor cost, 2 things are required to determine the direct labor cost. One is the time which is taken, and second one is the wage. That is right. So, for producing a chair, you need a skilled labor, you need a unskilled labor. So, there is a wage for unskilled labor, there is a wage for skilled labor. And what is the time required in converting a raw material into a finished product? So, that is the time which we multiply, and then we try to take the cost. So, this labor, direct labor cost depends upon the skillness he has, and depending upon the skill, the wage differs. Okay. So, here the direct labor cost depends upon the time required and the wage required. The procedure used in determining the time it is taken to complete the task is described in the next slide. So, what we do is, generally, suppose if there are some 20 events to be happened to convert a raw material into a finished product. So, each event we will try to split that event into several small sub events, and events we try to split 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And now for each event I know what is the cycle time. So, then I add this cycle time, find out this major event, from here I try to find this event. Like this, I try to do 10 or 20 events to do one job, and finally I try to total this sum and then try to do it. When I try to split smaller and smaller and smaller, what happens is, there are standards which are established by industrial labor law or the organization. They have said that for this micro event, what should be the time to be given. So, here what we do is estimating the direct and indirect cost, observe the task being performed and record the time it takes to complete the direct cycle of the task. For example, if somebody is repetitively doing a job, so what you do is, you go there, stand besides him and start recording how many times he does the job in one shift. Say for example, repetitive job he does in one shift. For each job, what is each time when he repeats, what is the time he takes. So, first what they say is, they try to say please observe. Then what they say is, then time the number of task cycle is recorded and average, and then average cycle time is called the observed time. So, what they say is, for example, for doing a X job he takes 11 minutes, 12 minutes, 11 minutes and then he takes 14 minutes. So, now what they say is, they say add up all these things. A simple thing is, I say 10, so plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4. So, 1 plus 3 plus 1 4 plus 4 8, 8 divided by 4 2. So, it takes 2, it takes 12 minutes. It's 12, 48 divided by 4, it is 12 minutes. So, what have you done? You have taken the time taken for the same task to do 4 times, and then you have averaged it out, and then you have tried to figure out this is 12, this 12 is called the observed time. So what is a normal time? Normal time is nothing but observed time into rating. So what I do is, I don't take 12 minutes all the time, because if I do it at 12 minutes, then we don't give any fatigue allowance, we don't give an allowance wherein which he has to attend to his nature's call. We don't give a small, because if you don't give a relaxation, then that might lead to fatigue and tiredness, and he does not perform very well, or there is a possibility mistakes can happen. So generally what we do is, we try to take 12 minutes and then we multiply it with a factor of called 8.8. So that means to say 80% of the time he will do it more focusedly. So 12 into 0.8, so that will be the normal time which is taken. Pace at which the operator being observed to work, that is the rating. So we always multiply with that, and then what we say, this is the time which you take for a cycle time. Then what we do is standard time divided by the job standard, that is nothing but normal time plus allowance we give. So what is the job standard? This man does it at this phase, but when I do it within 8 minutes. Okay. So then if an old man does, or if an unskilled labor does, he might take more time, but when a skilled labor does, he does it in a short span of time. So now what you have to do, you have to now establish a standard. So that is nothing but the standard time is job standard. So that is normal time plus allowance, which is all put together, and that's how you try to find out what is the estimate the direct cycle time. The next topic of discussion is going to be estimating direct and indirect cost. So here, as we have already seen, average observed time is total time of x complete cycles of the task, that divided by x. Normal time is nothing but average observed time into rating. Standard time is nothing but normal time divided by 1 minus PDF allowance. So all these things are very important. Please remember these formulas. There can be questions in the examination point of view. So what is PDF allowance? The PDF allowance are the fraction of the normal time devoted to the personal needs, unavoidable delays and recovery from fatigue. So these are all given as part of PDF. The standard time may be expressed in seconds, minutes or hours depending upon the job. The standard time may also be used to determine the output per hour in terms of number of pieces as follows. Pieces per hour equal to 60 divided by standard time in minutes. So standard output per day equal to pieces per hour into 8, that into pieces. So this is a trivial one. So for calculating the number of pieces what is to be produced. From the preceding, the direct labor cost can be calculated as follows. Direct labor cost per piece is equal to wages rate, which is nothing but dollars per hour or rupees per hour into standard time per hour divided by pieces. So the direct labor cost per day, when you try to do per piece, now when you try to talk per day, is nothing but pieces per day into standard time, hours per piece into average, this average rating which is in rupees per hour. So note, the wage rate may or may not include the cost of fringe benefits. There are small fringe benefits which we try to give in industry, that is not there. If the cost is not included, the wage rate must be modified to accommodate it. The actual wage rate in that cases, actual wage rate is nothing but wage rate into 1 plus F plus U plus W plus H. F is nothing but FI CA fraction, U is unemployment compensation fraction, W is work compensation fraction, health, H is health and other insurance compensation fraction. So all these things put together, we try to get 1 plus F, U, W and H, we try to multiply with wage rate, and what we get is the actual wage rate. So the next thing is, sometimes it is necessary to modify the time per unit to account for the effective of learning. So this may be written as time T per piece after cumulative production P equal to T naught into P to the power n. What is P? P is the cumulative production, added production. T naught is the time to take the first unit. P is the learning rate. So initially the learning rate will be very high, slow, or learning rate will be slow, and then what happens is after a certain saturation of time, the learning rate is not going to be so much, so it reaches a saturation point. So here what we have done is we have tried to put that into the formula so that you can try to get. So if you assume that at initial time n will be slow, at later time the n will be, after some point, initially it will be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, so that he is understanding the process. Once he has learnt it, then this does not come into existence. So the direct material cost, the bill of material is essential for determining the quantities of material required, as it generally contains the pound, cubes or square yards, board feet, square feet, gallons, linear feet, etc., etc., etc. So we try to calculate what is the material which is used and how much material which is used. Basically, if it is given in weight, we try to come in density, and then we try to find out the volume. So we try to crisscross and play many things. The next step is to apply the appropriate material per unit and the costing. So you have found out that 25 grams have to be used. So now what I am trying to say, 1 gram is what? So with that, what we do is we try to multiply, and then we try to get the material cost. So material cost for a unit is equal to W plus 1 plus L1, L2, L3, L1 plus L2 plus L3 bracket close P multiplied by P minus R. So what is W? W is weight in pounds for a unit, P is the price per pound, R is the unit price of salvaged material per unit, L1 is the loss due to scrap, L2 is the loss due to waste, and L3 is the loss due to shrinkage. It is all in fractions, all the three can be there, any two can be there, only one can be there, that is left to the product and the process, whatever it is. To determine the material cost, one can use several rules: first in, first out cost, last in, first out cost, current cost or the actual cost. He can use any of these things, and then he can try to calculate the costing. The actual price requires calculating equivalent cost and work as the follows: cost equivalent is equal to the summation of CI into AI divided by AI. What is A? A is the unit in dimensions compatible to the cost C, and I is varying the lot number. It can be 10. What is a batch size? That is called as a lot number. So we have seen direct cost. Now we will see what are the indirect cost. The overhead cost or the indirect cost are the portion of the cost that cannot be clearly associated with particular operation, product or project. It may be prorated among all the product units on the same basis. Overhead cost include labor cost for persons who are not directly involved with specific manufacturing process such as manager, secretary, various facility costs such as utilities and mortgages payment, non-cash benefits provided to employees such as health insurance, retirement contribution, unemployment insurance, and any other cost of running the business such as accounting, taxing, furnishing, insurance, sick leaves, paid vacations, etc., etc. All these things fall under indirect cost. When overhead is allocated based on the direct labor cost, it is often called as burden rate and is used to determine either the overhead cost COH or the burden labor rate LRB, as COH is equal to N times NPM into B into CL, and LRB is that is nothing but the burden rate. OH is the overhead cost, N is the number, B is nothing but the burden labor burden rate, which always takes a value between 0.3 to 2, and LR is the labor rate, which is 1 plus B, often expresses in dollars per hour, which when convert to an annual basis is the employment gross average basis. What are the other hidden costs? Hidden costs are those costs that are difficult to quantify. Example for hidden cost is products gain or lose the market share, companies stock price changes, portion in the market for futuristic product, then positioning the product in the futuristic market, impact of competitors, for future value of the value of engineering, manufacturing and support experience associated with using new technologies and material, long term health, safety, environmental impact are some of the hidden costs which are involved in costing. So, design and manufacturing cost. So, till now what we saw is, we saw overhead cost, we saw direct labor cost, then indirect labor cost, then we saw hidden cost. The next one we will see manufacturing cost. So, manufacturing cost forms the basis for determining the actual recurring cost of making a product. Manufacturing cost are generally the sum of cost from four primary sources. The first one is recurring labor cost. The labor cost refers to the cost of people required to perform specific activities. The labor cost per unit associated with an activity performed during manufacturing can be determined by this formula. So, these two formulas are the same. So, where NL is the number of people associated with the activity, it can be values always less than 1. Then T is nothing but the length of the time taken by the activity. NP is the number of units that can be treated simultaneously by the activity. For example, if you have something like gang drilling, so you have one workpiece, you have several drills which are attached to a spindle, and you can do all 3 holes. These are drills. So, you can do all the 3 holes machining at simultaneously. That is what we call it as number of units that can be treated simultaneously by the activity, or generally you take about heat treatment, all 1000 parts to be done in one heat treatment. That is what we are talking about, NP. So, design and development cost. So, here what we saw was manufacturing cost. The next one is design and development cost. Design and development costs are referred to as non-recurring cost. So, here manufacturing cost is recurring cost. Every part I produced, there is a manufacturing cost. Design is one time I make it, and that is frozen for rest of the time the product is made in the factory. So, as they are one time charges, and no matter how many units you produce are manufactured. The specific elements of design and development cost that must be included are development of product specification, conceptual design after listening to voice of customers, intellectual property acquisition or protection against licensing, design of a product including the creation of engineering drawing, software development, creating prototypes, functional testing, and environmental and product qualification and certification. So, all these things are nothing but costing which are involved in design and development. This is one time affair. When you talk about manufacturing cost, it is every part you produce, there is a recurring cost. So, the recurring material cost can be further found out. The cost of a material associated with an activity can be given by Cm equal to Um into Cm. And what is Um is the quantity of material consumed as indicated by its count, volume, area or length. Cm is the unit cost of the material per count, is nothing but the Cm. So, we try to calculate the recurring material cost in terms of Cm. Then allocation of non-recurring tools. Tools costs are non-recurring costs associated with the activities that occur only once or few times. So, for example, once in 100 cycles I have to replace the drill. So, for every 100 parts you do it once, and many a times you buy a spanner, and that spanner stays with you rest of the life whenever you do some operation of it. So, those things are called as one time affair or a few times in the cycle. So, examples of tooling cost are programming and calibration cost for manufacturing equipments and training people. Some other examples may be a purchase or manufacture of a product specific tools, jigs, stencils, etc., etc. What is the capital cost? Capital cost is a one time investment cost. It can be construction of a building, buying a huge capital intensive machine. So, capital cost are those costs for purchasing and maintaining the manufacturing equipment and facility. In general, capital cost can be associated with this. T is the length of the time wherein which the activity is going to take. CE is the purchase price of a capital equipment or facility, that is CE. NP is the number of units which is produced. TOP is the operational time of the equipment, and TD is the depreciation life in year. So, many a times several of these buildings what are existing today, they have a value of almost 0. The depreciation has gone so low that it has reached the value of the building as per the records are 0. So, this is where there is a depreciation life which plays a very important role in costing. Many items, if you start putting depreciation over a period of time, the value becomes 0. But this product or the part or the building what you hold has a value even after the depreciation life period is over. So, here costing plays a very important role. Okay. So, this is how you try to calculate the capital cost. And equipments, please understand, many a times when we do disaster management camps, what we do is we try to establish one time, and that is only for a small period of time, maybe 15 days, 1 month, 1 day, whatever it is, something like that. So, those are called disaster or occasional or a event based this thing. Here what we calculate is a long term project, a car manufacturing site, the investment involved, or a college construction. So, that is what we try to talk about. And here I am always talking to you about the products. When you talk about an institution, it is number of students it can accommodate. Okay. So, you have to tweak the definitions a little bit. What is a process flow model? So, process flow model is manufacturing process can be modeled as a sequence of process steps that takes place in a specific order. For example, as soon as you get into your house, you remove your shoes and then you try to wash your legs and hands and face. Then you go sit in your living room or in your dining room and start having a cup of tea. So, then you sit in your living room, then you have a cup of tea, then you have a small talking session with your family or with your friends, and then what you do is you finish the cup and put it cup for wash. So, here what is happening, these are a sequence of events which happen as soon as you enter your house. So, a manufacturing process also has a similar sequence. So, the sequence can be in such a way that you do not even remove shoe, you directly go sit, have a cup of tea, or you just do not even have a cup of tea with shoes, you just go start talking to your friend sitting in a living room, possible. Okay. The process is established, the sequence is established, you can follow the same sequence all the time, you can even jump over the sequence and execute the process. So, in manufacturing also it is the same. Manufacturing process can be modeled as a sequence of process steps that takes place in a specific order. The steps and their order are referred to as a process flow. In a process flow model, a product unit acquires cost as it moves through a sequence of process steps. So, every step it does, there is a value addition for a raw material to get convert, there is a value addition, and for every value addition there is a costing. So, a costing gets built up to the product. Each process steps starts with the state of the unit after preceding process steps. So, that means to say, here I have assumed every product undergoes every step. The current step then modifies the unit and its output is a new unit state which forms the unit of the next state. For example, every state, if you are not interested in this example, you can try to remove it. I will try to give another example. Other example is, let us take a pizza. So, pizza base is there. So, then you add a topping to it, okay, topping, and then you add topping can be base, and then you can have vegetables on top of it, topping, and then it undergoes a heat treatment cycle, and then it undergoes a packaging cycle before giving it to the customer. So, every step there is a value getting added to the product, and based on this value addition, the next stage the costing also goes increasing. So, this is what we are trying to say in this process. So, the cost of ownership model, this is one, COO is one model. The COO calculates an effective tool cost for ownership for each piece of the equipment in the manufacturing process, and then charges each unit a fraction of that cost based on the portion of the lifetime of the equipment used by the product. For example, I buy a tawa, and this tawa is used for making 10,000 vadas. So, what I do is, this tawa's cost is 10 rupees or 100 rupees. I divide this 100 by 1000. So, when I try to sell this vada, I try to add so much of component into that vada as a cost for the owner's model, and then I try to sell it. For example, this is the capital cost I have incurred. I have incurred So I divide it by the number of products and then get it. The other one is called as activity based cost, activity based cost model, ABC model. The activity based cost model is a method of assigning an organizational resource cost through activities to the products and services provided to the customers. So here it is only the products which is produced, here it is also, and the services also done. Once activity and their associated cost driver are identified, and activity rate AR is given in determining the relationship. So AR is nothing but activity cost pool divided by activity base. So here activity based costing is a method of assigning an organizational resource cost through activities to the product and the service provided. So that is ABC. Activity based costing is a method of assigning an organization's resource cost, okay, through activities to the product and service. Once the activity and the associated cost drives are identified, an activity rate is determined for the relationship, where the activity cost pool, what is the activity cost pool? Activity cost pool is this. So I can say it as ACP. So the activity cost pool is the total number of overheads required by activities during some period of time, and the activity is based in the number of times the activity was performed on the product during the period of time. So the total cost of the ith activity of a single product is determined by CAI equal to ARI, NAI plus CLI and CMJ. So this is the ith product, okay. So NAI is the number of times the activity must be performed to manufacture 1 unit of a product. The product ARI and NAI in the above equation is the overhead allocated to 1 unit of the product by the activity for 1 unit. CAI is the overall activity associated with the manufacturing. Sorry, in today's lecture it is all more of costing and it is a simple formula. These formulas are very simple, but you have to remember this from the examination point of view. It is just applying logics and then they start doing. The last one is called as the parametric cost modeling. So we have seen two models, cost of ownership model, activity based cost model, then we have parametric cost model. So the parametric cost model forms the basis of many top down cost models that seek to establish an estimate of the cost of a product from higher level design parameters that defines the product's performance, functionality and physical attribute. So this is called as parametric cost model. Here forms the basis of for many top down costs, many top down cost model that seeks to establish an estimate of the cost of a product from high level design parameters that defines the product performance, functionality and the physical attributes. The relationship between the design parameters and the costing is called as CER, which is nothing but cost estimating relationship. So the technical cost modeling, the process of determining the primary cost contribution from the physical parameters associated with the manufacturing process and the product specification specifying details is called as technical cost model. So this can be used in conjunction with any of the model approach that can be associated so far discussed. So this can be associated. So what all did we see? We saw cost of owner, activity based cost, then we saw parametric cost model, and then finally we saw technical costing model. So task for students, take a ballpoint pen and then try to dissect, that means to say strip it off to the last information. For example, you remove all the parts, keep it in front of you, then put a small, so for example, so here you put the cost, here you paste the part. something like this. So here what you will do is, you will start putting approximate cost what is known to you here, and then what you will do is, you will try to put a total price. So here what will happen is, you will have a total cost. Looking into all the parts, you will try to summarize and then put. Then go to the market, try to buy the same pen and compare your costing, what you have done piecewise, to the pen's price. And now you will understand how difficult or how much is costing important, or what is a variation you give, and in this you have put only the manufacturing cost, right. So here in this, behind this manufacturing cost, there are process cost, design cost, all those things. So then you will try to understand there will be an error. So now you will have to divide what are all the possibilities for error. When you do this exercise, you will have a thorough understanding of the difficulties which is involved in costing. Thank you very much.